People are desperately searching for something deeper in their work. That missing piece is purpose. Right now, in the modern working world, people are facing levels of uncertainty that has never before been experienced. It's causing people to become overwhelmed, burn out, unfulfilled, and even lost. But it doesn't have to be this way.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joshua M. Evans.
Everyone has the ability to find purpose in their work. It doesn't matter how menial a task seems or how mundane a role feels.
In fact, I would argue that every single one of us started from a place where we were engaged.
But it gets overshadowed by the day-to-day minutia, the unread emails, the Zoom meetings, the KPIs, and we forget what doing great work means to all those that depend on us. People are really concerned about AI and automation coming for their jobs. I think the bigger concern should be organizations wondering how can they help their team members form an emotional connection, then knowing that there is a greater purpose, a deeper meaning behind the work that they're actually accomplishing. Somebody came to me and goes, Joshua, how would you like to live in the mountains of Colorado for the summer? Go down extreme whitewater rapids during the day and play guitar around the campfire at night for our guests. Well, it sounded too good to be true. You, the audience, have just been enlisted in Joshua's boat. We're gonna practice all forward one together. Left back two, right forward one, all back one, all forward two. Right back two, left forward two, stop. We're on the rocks. And that's a problem for me, because for every guest that falls out of my boat, I have to pay the other guides a 6-pack of beer. Late into the evening, I find myself playing songs by the Beatles or the Eagles until the guests would go to bed, and I would make my way back to my tent to set my battery-powered alarm clock to go off the next morning at 5:30 to do it all over again, day after day after day. New guests would arrive, I'd make the same lame jokes about the rapids, we'd cook the same meals, and I'd sing the same tired songs around the campfire. I forgot why I cared. And then one day, I was on the river, and one of my guests lost his paddle at the top of a rapid, literally the worst place for him to lose his paddle. And he erupted into this visceral frustration, getting angry that he no longer had his paddle. So I took a moment to calm him down and said, it's okay. Our paddles, they float. We can pick it up after the rapid. You see, in my role as a river guide, I had lost my sense of purpose, and I felt just as helpless. We need to realize we have the ability to reclaim it, to rediscover, to grab our paddle once more. I remember the first times I heard the screams coming from our guest bathroom. I followed the sounds of the screams and I made my way to our guest bathroom where I found my oldest son, Luke, who's 4 years old at the time, washing his hands and screaming at the top of his lungs. I checked the water temperature and it's barely warm, so I'm slowly able to calm him down and ask him, Luke, are you hurt? Are you okay? And he goes, I'm fine, Daddy. And I'm relieved. But now I have to explain to a 4-year-old, look, we cannot be screaming unless it's an emergency. You scared mommy and daddy, you've woken up your little brother, we need to be quiet when we come home and wash our hands, okay? And he goes, okay, and off he runs to go play. For the next 10 days that Luke went to school, every day he would come home and he would begin screaming. So me and my wife took him to the pediatrician, and at their behest, we ended up taking him to a child psychologist. The psychologist, she sat me and my wife down and she goes, Mr. and Mrs. Evans, your son Luke is autistic. Playing catch in the driveway, taking him fishing, teaching him how to drive. All of those things that I had envisioned evaporated with one phrase. The psychologist, she continued, she goes, Mr. and Mrs. Evans, it's going to be very difficult for you to understand Luke's unconventional perception of reality using your conventional view of the world. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of understanding. And the next school day, Luke went to school and he came home and he went to wash his hands and the screams started again. So I decided instead of going in there and telling him what I need him to start doing or what I want him to stop doing, I'm gonna just ask an open-ended question to understand Luke better. And I go, Luke, why are you screaming? And he goes, Daddy, I'm not screaming. Those are the germs screaming as they fall off my hands. We make judgment calls based on our knowledge, our expertise, our experiences. Those assumptions limit our options. Instead of being governed by our preconceptions, we need to be directing our perceptions and how we perceive a situation.
purpose. Sometimes we think our purpose is to post rent, but that's not our purpose. You know, our purpose is to make a great home for a family.
She was, actually, Josh, what I'm really passionate about is driving for Uber. And she told me that 2 years before this, her sister had died in a drunk driving accident. And she didn't want anybody else to go through the pain of not arriving home safely. What she's really providing to every individual that gets into her car is peace of mind. The work you're doing means so much, but sometimes it's hard to remember when we're faced with all the daily challenges. It makes it difficult to remember. But it's up to each one of us to continually be moving towards meaning. You have to manage your influences, or your influences will be managing you. You need to ask yourself, are you going to cling to the archaic ways of business, or are we going to embrace this new model, what the people truly need, this new era of purpose in the workplace? Because people are no longer working just for the money, they want to care. Having purpose in your work is not reserved for Patagonia employees and philanthropists. Every single one of us deserves the deep fulfillment that comes from seeing that. These turbulent waters of your life, both personally and professionally, we have a choice to make every single day, whether we're going to choose to perish or we're going to choose to have purpose. Thank you very much.